For salvation will work. Holding grievances is an attack. Join me in that. Only God's plan for salvation will work. Holding grievances is an attack. Beautiful. Only God's plan for salvation will work. Holding grievances is an attack. Only God's plan for salvation will work. Holding grievances is an attack. Listen now. An attack on God's plan for salvation. Ready to join me? An attack on God's plan for salvation. One more time. An attack on God's plan for salvation. We'll go back to the beginning. Only God's plan for salvation will work. Only God's plan for salvation will work. Holding grievances is an attack. Only God's plan for salvation will work. Holding grievances is an attack. An attack on God's plan for salvation. An attack on God's plan for salvation. Salvation. God's plan for salvation. Only God's plan for salvation will work. Thank God. Thank God mine failed miserably. Thank God we know that our plan failed miserably.
Continuously.
Always and forever will always fail. And yet it's amazing how dense we are and how long it takes to get that. How long have we tried to have a substitute plan for salvation that fails over and over and over? And even when it does well, it leads but to one place: sickness, pain, and death. And we call that the world. We have the audacity to think that God is love, and yet everything ends in this horrible way. But what this is saying to us over and over and over again is that that's not true. Everything ends in light. Your plan for salvation is to grow old, sick, and die, and then make believe that your spirit's going to leave this and that you're going to end up in some heavenly kingdom if you've been a good boy or girl. But the opposite is true. Doing that assures that you're going to keep coming back and playing that game over and over and over again until you get to the point where you realize only God's plan for salvation will work. And stop trying to substitute it. Treat this literally. We've said this before, that this is a literal teaching from whole-mindedness. This is not to be interpreted around. This is not to say, well, I like this part, but I'm not so sure about this part, because it challenges my plan for salvation. That's the only reason we would hold back, is because we perceive a challenge to our own plan for salvation, and we're not willing to completely surrender to God's plan for salvation. So that's so beautiful, and that's so good to know. And then, of course, holding grievances is an attack. Everything that we do, our plan, is always based on a foundation of holding grievances and not forgiving. So that's why this is a plan for forgiveness. So this gets me excited. I don't know about you guys, but I get excited when I hear this and when I realize all I need to do is to let go. Stop trying to insist that I know better, because I don't. Because everything I've ever done has failed. And even when it's succeeded, it leads but to one place. So I'm willing to surrender and accept God's plan for salvation. How about you, Vicki?
Oh, I'm all in on that. I love this lesson because we don't have to know. I clearly don't know what God's plan is, except that his plan is that I be here right now. That's the part I only know. And that's enough. Anything else, it's an unknown adventure instead of an unknown terror. And because God's plan is perfect happiness, as we've practiced on before. So I'm grateful for that. And then grievances hide the light and take salvation away. And every time we think we know better, in the Course, Jesus says, sin is an adjustment. We're trying to adjust. We're trying to fix someone, change someone, help someone. Those are the most insidious grievances to let go of, where we think we know better for someone else. And instead of just saying, I don't know, thank you, God, for my brother just as he is. Let me bless him and join with him and see your plan, your wondrous plan unfold.
So let me move this over, and we would love to hear from the amazing Lisa Natoli. Lisa, what do you want to share?
I love this too, and for years I was doing A Course in Miracles, and I was in conflict, and I kept thinking the conflict's just going to disappear. Like, I've dedicated my life to God, and I want peace, and I want joy, and I want to serve, and I kept being in conflict. And I couldn't understand, why am I still in conflict? I've dedicated my whole life to this work. I'm doing the workbook lessons. And I recognized later, you often don't recognize these things until later, is I wanted to be in conflict. I loved it. I was addicted to it. It was normal and natural for me. It was my comfort zone. And I love how Jesus says that the time factor for miracles is determined by each and every one of us. So the time when I had reached this point in my life when I really had enough, I didn't want the conflict. I didn't want it. I didn't need to be right. I wanted to just let it go. It was gone like that. And now when things still come up, it's like little threads. I know how to deal with it. I can see it for what it is. And it really was this lesson that brought me to a place of, oh my God, not only am I just holding grievances, I'm literally attacking God. There's no neutral place. We think our grievances are just neutral. Somebody did something that upset me, and now I'm having a grievance. And it's normal. It's not normal. We're literally in attack mode, and that's why we get sick and suffer. Until the moment when we recognize, he says, lay down your sword, lay down your toys of battle, and come on home. And I love it. I love the immediacy of this. I can just be happy.
Yeah, imagine that. Imagine just being happy. Well, let's really do that. Let's really imagine that, because that's what this is really all about. Only God's plan for salvation will work, and within that I experience perfect joy. So let's sing it one more time and really feel it. Go ahead and join me right away. Only God's plan for salvation will work. Holding grievances is an attack. Only God's plan for salvation will work. Holding grievances is an attack. On God's plan for salvation, on God's plan for salvation, on God's plan for salvation, on God's plan for salvation. Only God's plan for salvation will work. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan.